Black Sunday. So, I speak on emotions frequently, and it's because emotions bother me. And now I want you to understand that I'm not saying that emotions in and of themselves are bad, and everything in the universe is relatively neutral. It's circumstantial whether it's good or bad, and up to the individual. But it's that emotions tend to cause more trouble than they're worth. And some people might say that, well, secondary emotions versus primary emotions, or well, only certain negative emotions. Well, you know what? Emotions are emotions. You only have a handful of chemicals that dictate your emotions. And when it really comes down to it, you're just responding to a stimulus. And so from that angle, you can't escape emotions. You simply cannot not respond to things. I mean, chemically, biologically, you could not respond to things in the environment, but eventually you'll find that non-responsiveness is actually going to be the ruin of you. Being able to respond and feel and respond is an important part of life. But when I speak poorly about emotions, what I'm talking about really is the idea of letting your emotions control you. Bruce Lee said it as getting lost in your emotions. Being able to feel and direct that feeling is very powerful. But getting lost in it and letting that feeling direct you is incredibly damaging. And there are some very good examples. If you've ever heard somebody say jokingly, don't distract me with the facts, or there's a case of the judge, I believe it was on tax law, I might be wrong, who literally said, when the defendant started quoting legal statutes, the judge literally said, "I will not allow the law in my courtroom." That may have been a religious one. And speaking of religion, how many times do you see religious judges clinging to things like having the Ten Commandments up in the courthouse, despite that being specifically against federal law? I mean, it's against the Constitution that this country is based on. The separation of church and state, the fact that the government cannot be for or against any religion in order to truly have freedom of religion. Which means we cannot support the Ten Commandments any more than we can say, this is government-wise, then the government can say that the Ten Commandments is wrong. The government is literally prohibited from making any official statement or legislation on religion. So anytime people let their beliefs, their emotions, because understand that belief is an emotion. I've spoken on this before. The word belief literally means to like an idea. It's the root of the word. It means to like an idea, whereas the word faith means to trust. Trust is still an emotion, but on a different level than liking. And understand that your belief, your emotions, your response to ideas or other stimuli will always, always, always influence your decisions, no matter how objective you think you may be. Objectivity is fundamentally impossible from the human perspective. Objective reality may in fact exist. Some people will argue that it does not. But objective reality may in fact exist, but as individuals we can never experience objective reality. We can only experience reality through our own lens and pair that up against the expressed realities of others and hope that they kind of match up. And it's depressing. It's really depressing how much emotions get in the way of making decisions. And the more strongly held, the more fervent that emotion is, the more difficult it is to make a decision outside of that emotion, outside of whatever that held belief is. Decision making has to be cold, has to be calculated, has to be non-emotional, but it can't be. And that is extremely, extremely depressing. Now, are there ways that we can mitigate it? Yes, there certainly are. There are ways to run debiasing tests. If you're pushing, if you're asking for somebody to make a decision on something they believe negatively about, get them in a more positive mindset. If you ask somebody to make a decision based on something they believe positively about, get them to go in a negative direction. Always kind of stretch them. It's kind of like stretching your muscles. There's a bit of plasticity there. It's not total plasticity, but a bit of plasticity that when you stretch them, they tend to stay stretched for a little bit. So if you stretch them and allow them to make that decision during the course of that, then it's pulling them away from their bias just a little bit, and it will get you a cleaner response, a less biased, a more calculated, rational response. But it's difficult, especially if they recognize what you're doing. You almost have to perform a little sleight of hand. And honestly, if you're a martial artist, you should be practicing a little sleight of hand anyway. It's not something I'm very good at. I haven't practiced card tricks or anything in a long time, much less any actual, hiding objects and producing objects that someday. It's on my list. But the fact is that emotional decision making is dangerous. It can also work in your favor if you're the manipulative type. Learn how to make people respond and then ask them to make a decision. If you ask somebody to make a decision in a heated or impassioned state, especially one that you directed them towards, then they'll be more likely to make a decision at least resembling the direction you wanted them to make. I don't really recommend going around manipulating people, except in combat, but the information is yours to do with what you will. But understand that as an individual, you need to have your emotions in check. They are part of the human experience, they certainly enrich the human experience, and they simply are. Learn how to deal with them. But the big thing is, try your best not to let your emotions direct you. Everything from food addiction, is it making you cranky that you didn't get your candy today? Grow the fuck up. Is it making you irritable that somebody didn't respond to your greeting this morning and ask you how your day was? Sorry, don't let it ruin your day. Be in control of your emotions. Always be in control of your emotions to the point where even if you can't control how you feel in the instant, learn how to recognize it and circumvent the loop. Learn how to cut the loop off. Learn how to recognize the pattern of the emotion and learn how to deal with it so that you don't become this wreck of ruined day. Because nobody needs to deal with your horse shit, let alone yourself, but especially nobody else. And especially over matters that we get so trivial about. So like I said, you may not be able to control your emotions immediately, right now. You can never control how you feel in the instant, but you can train yourself to learn how to recognize it and to learn how to deal with it preemptively or in the early stages before it rolls to a full boil. And that's really all we're asking, is be able to deal with them before they become problematic for yourself or others. And then not only will your workspace, your creative space, your own inner space be more fluid and effective and helpful and useful, but you'll find that you are less stressed out. And that's important. It's very important. Because emotions, even the good emotions, when overdosed, cause a lot of stress. You want to run the balance, not the overdose, in any direction. That's all I got for you. I'll talk to you guys later. I am tying all over my tongue tonight. Good journey.